in your marina, so let me in there.
Says we are live. But
With that being said, we're live. All right, post-holiday episode 32, Boating Tips Live. We're going to start something new. It's going to be hashtag BTL. Hope that catches on. That'll be awesome. And we've got the last episode of 2020. Captain Keith, thanks for joining me again today, as always.
man, where did time go, right? Flew by, huh?
Look at us now, a bunch of fancy equipment, and I still can't figure out how to use my iPhone. So
Yeah, it started out from us like trying to do it on our phones to now we got lights and cameras and microphones and all this. So who knows what 2021 will have for us?
probably laser beams and all sorts of crazy stuff with maybe we'll be doing it in a helicopter or something. I don't know. But
Hey.
What are we talking about? What do we got on the dock?
Hey, Kelly Berry just jumped in here. He said, Happy New Year, guys. So Happy New Year to you, Kelly, you and your family.
Hey, Kelly.
So I think today we're just kind of shooting from the hip. We're going to see what happens, see what kind of questions we get. Just bring your questions. Ask us anything. Very informal today, as it is pretty much every week.
Yeah, I know that we ask every single week. You know, drop your comments down in the comments, whatever. Drop your questions in the comments. But we actually like really mean that today, because if you don't, then we're gonna have a short episode, and Keith and I aren't exactly gonna know what to talk about. So drop them down below. Any questions, any little situations or whatever, anything that you think might be, hey, this is a dumb question here. It's probably not a question here, because there's probably another 25 people watching that have the same exact one. So go ahead and drop them. Anything goes.
Hey, Lisa just popped a question in here. She said, any tips for boating in the Florida quote-unquote cold weather? That's actually a very good question. You know, we might be up on land up here, you know, it might be 75 degrees, but, you know, the water temperature could be in the 60s. So, I mean, you get out there, you got that inversion. And, you know, you get out on the water, it's a lot colder than what you think, especially if you end up getting stuck out a little bit later. You know, that sun starts to go down, you know how cold it gets. So, you know, especially this time of year, take extra clothes with you or dress warm. You know, make sure you got a hat, you know, so your temperature doesn't, you know, leave out of the top of your head, obviously. But, you know, take extra clothes, layer up.
Keep your feet dry too. If you know you can wear any sort of boots or whatever. If you can keep your feet warm and dry,
yep,
you're in good shape. But man, the second that you dip your sock into the water or something, you're in for a miserable day altogether. It doesn't matter how bundled up you are, the rest of your body. If your feet are wet and cold, you're gonna be cold and miserable.
Yep. Stay dry, stay warm.
All right, got a Facebook question coming in here. It looks like it's Justin Lindhorst from Madeira Beach. Thanks for joining us, Justin. Says, what fish are hot and biting right now? Great question. So let's hit on offshore really quick. We've got Gagber closing up here in a couple days at the end of the year. This cold weather is obviously going to bring them in very close. And when I mean close, I mean, shoot, almost in the stone crab traps in some places. What have you heard going on with that, Keith?
Yeah, the gags, but then, you know, inshore here, I mean, we got, you know, Justin, one of our sales guys over here, is a great red fisherman. But, you know, he does the inshore stuff. And I think, you know, the power plants, you know, they're getting cobia and stuff over there now. And then I've seen some other guys posting some pictures of some awesome triple tail. You know, you get some of these days where it's nice and calm and all those crab traps are right off the beach. You know, the triple tail will tend to sit right on those styrofoam floats. You just running by, it might actually look like a little bag or a weed or something attached to the float. And, you know, excellent eating, you know, really firm white meat on those. Prehistoric looking fish, right? You know, it's got the triple tail is what it's called, but it's almost got like 3 tails on the back of it.
They are, for sure. I mean, they're some of the best eating fish that you can come across. Also, another thing that people tend to forget in the wintertime is, you know, you become a better fisherman. Everybody's relying on white bait or whatever it is, which is going to be a little harder to come across nowadays. But I think that, you know, fishing with a live shrimp is very underrated this time of year, and here's why. All these fish, you know, whether it's sheep's head, whether it's redfish even, they don't have that energy. The water temp drops. They're getting a little more lethargic, especially the snook too. I mean, you put a big old jumbo shrimp on there, you never know what you can catch, especially in the wintertime, whether it's big sheep's head, redfish, black drum, even on the flats. You never know. I mean, it's the fish are hunkering down and, trying to conserve that energy.
Yep, sheephead bite's real hot right now too. So talk about another good eating fish. I'd rather eat that probably than a grouper. I'll tell you the truth. It's a good fish. And then like you're talking about with the shrimp, we're on Allen's Creek right here, and you get these cold fronts. The speckled trout get stacked up in here. They get up in there thick, and these our techs and guys are in the mornings before work or after work, out there with jigs and just as slow as you can just possibly go, just barely moving that jig along the bottom, and those trout are picking those up.
Other time with it being a wintertime right now as well, Keith. I mean, those super, super lows. I mean, you've got opportunities to, the fish are going to be a little bit more concentrated than really any other time of the year because there's really not much water for them to swim in. I remember back, I used to do a lot of wading in high school with my own wrestling fish. When we'd have these super, super lows, you'd be way out on the flat, and there wouldn't be much room between, the flat and the drop off. And man, you would really flank those fish in, whether you're going to Weeden Island, Picnic Island, whatever it might be. But you've got some pretty good opportunities for some cold water wading. Just watch out for the duck hunters and stuff in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and it's also too great to scout around, right? You can see where those little deeper troughs are, where the potholes are, and all that. Just remember it. Then as that tide starts to come up, you'll see those fish push, and that's where they're going to go. Also, look for the wading birds. The tide's real low and you look out there and you see all these little egrets and everything over there sticking their heads in the mud over there. They're just, they're there. They're eating crabs, they're eating shrimp and all that. And that tide comes back in. That's where those fish are going to go.
Yeah. Let's talk about another fishery that I'm going to call it a relatively new one. And it's been figured out, I'd say, okay, really in the past decade, but really the past 7 years or so. We have a phenomenal hook and line hog fishery here on the Gulf Coast. And you got some guys really starting to dial it in. And up until, 10 years ago, whatever, I mean, you think hogfish, I mean, you're thinking all divers and stuff, everybody's shooting them. But, I mean, you can dial them in now. And, I mean, if anybody's going to have this argument or debate over the best tasting fish in the Gulf of Mexico, whether it's your sheep's head, your triple tails, your groupers, whatever it may be, I think that on anybody's list, hogfish has to be in that conversation, and you can go out and catch them relatively easy, relatively close to shore, and it's a, I don't want to say a surefire, but you don't need to run out to the middle ground to get into some hook and line hogfish.
Nope, not at all. Just take a ton of shrimp with you. You're going to weed through a bunch of other, quote unquote garbage fish.
It is. It's a numbers game, but it is constant action. So everybody's always looking to bend a rod or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, shoot, you get them going. You get the shrimp going, and the grunts start coming around. The squirrelfish, the black sea bass, and next thing you know, you see that first orange hogfish come up, and yeah, I think that's super cool. Like, you can get a limit now, be home before noon, and you don't need to get in the water to get them with a spear gun.
Yep. That's a good day.
Do you dive?
It's been years. I used to. My uncle owned a dive shop. So like all through high school, college, and all that. I mean, I dove, all the time. And then kind of gotten out of it, but I loved it. And that was back before. We had a little hard pack, that we put the tank in, and had a May West, no automatic buoyancy compensators, no nothing. It was just to throw a tank on your back and a regulator and, little May West. If you had to come up, you had to sit there and blow the vest up yourself, or pull the CO2 cartridge like the suspenders, life jackets.
Cool. I've never really got into it, but there's a whole other world down there. I know that it's not necessarily the hardest thing in the world to get dive certified, and there's plenty of places that do it, even if it's just down in the Keys or wherever.
I highly recommend it. It's like you said, it's another world. It's awesome. Hey, we got a question from Kimberly over here. Kimberly Wolf, thanks for joining us, Kimberly. We've decided whether to fill the gas tank before winter storage in New England or to empty it? I would check with your service department up there, but I would imagine, if the boat's going to sit for any length of time, you probably want to have fuel in it. Put some fuel stabilizer in there. If the tank's empty, you're going to be probably more likely to get condensation in there. But check with your marine mechs up there local to you, and they'll steer you in the right way.
So we got another question here coming in off of Facebook. Vezi, when is the next boat show in Miami? Well, unfortunately, the Miami boat show is it's canceled, and that's a boat show. So there's a boat show and a yacht show. So my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, the yacht show is still on. So you'll have all your Ocean Alexanders there and, your Benettis, stuff like that. But the boat show is canceled usually around Valentine's Day. So that's that. That's what we're working with. Bummer. Hey, that's something I want to pick your brain about. Everybody, they'll get these new boats and stuff. Captain orientation runs great. But, hey, boating, you're going to run into little situations on the water where you think, hey, what the heck do I do? Or hey, I'm not a mechanic or whatever. And a big thing about being a captain is when you're a professional captain, I'm talking about, the guys that are on their own out there, you got to be and I'm sure you've encountered this on some of your transports, but you got to be a mechanic. You have to be a navigator. You have to be a weatherman. You need to be an electrician, all the above to be a captain. And, something goes wrong on a boat, all right? Let's say, you're in a situation that might be a high-stress situation. What's the first thing you do? What kind of pointers can you give as far as, keeping calm, troubleshooting a situation, and, just kind of assessing what's going on around you?
Well, even before you go, weather, don't put yourself in a bad situation, right? So check your weather forecasts before you go. Make sure your windlass works. Make sure your anchor, you make sure there's an anchor on your boat. Make sure that it's not locked up. Make sure that if you're out there and something breaks down, if you lose control, you lose power, you're drifting, you're going to be able to get the boat stopped and get the boat anchored. If you've got alarms going off, get down in the bilge. If it's an inboard boat, go down in there and find out, where, if you got water coming in, if it's a high water alarm, maybe you blew a hose on the intake on an engine. Well, if you shut that, let's say, starboard engine down, it's going to stop that water flow. Then you may have to limp in on the port engine. But just don't panic. The alarms are there for a reason, to give you notice ahead of time something's not right. And then, get down in there and look and try to figure it out. But read your owner's manuals. When you get your boat, you're going to get a captain's orientation from me or a Marine Max captain, but you've got a bag with the boat. And in that bag, there's a manual. Mm-hmm. And literally go through it page by page and sit down there and take the time to read the manual. You're going to learn a lot of things there, and something just may click in the back of your head when, it does hit the fan and you're looking around for something. You go, oh, I remember where that seacock is, or I remember where that valve is. I can shut something off. Peace of mind. This in front of the thing. CTO or Boat US. I happen to be a CTO member. It's like AAA on the water, right? So it's like I've got a professional mariner one just from work here, but I think it's like $165 for a year. Get the unlimited service. If you break down, they'll tow you back into your marina or your port or your boat ramp. If you run out of gas, if you need local information, maybe you're pulling into a marina somewhere or going into an inlet or a pass that you're unfamiliar with, you call your local CTO captain on here, and they're going to be able to give you, heads up. Yeah, man. The bank's shoaling over this way, so treat that red marker as if it was a green or whatever. They're going to let you know and keep you safe and ahead of the game. But CTO or Boat US, highly recommend.
It's a good point, Keith. And it's the first thing that I recommend as well. $165 a year or whatever it is, you can't beat that. And I don't even know what the rate is right now if you don't have that, but I'm going to tell you it's much, much more, right?
Oh yeah.
Pay for itself. I can almost guarantee you that membership will pay for itself 10 times over in your lifetime.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. No doubt about it.
Another thing, just to kind of piggyback off of that, is one of the hardest things to do, in boat maneuvering, seamanship, or whatever, is maneuvering a multi-engine boat, twin-engine boat on one engine. And it's very important. You're going to be freaking out. You mentioned limping in on one engine or whatever, which, I mean, that's one of the nice things about having multiple engines is you can always get back home. But it's it's one of the hardest things to do is, maneuver that boat with a single engine. So what I like to encourage people to do, and I'm sure you do too, go ahead and practice in the middle of open water. How's your boat going to react on one engine with your rudders and stuff like that? How's it going to work? That way you're not freaking out in a high-stress situation by the time it's too late, because you are in a situation. And you know what the boat's going to do. You know how it's going to react. And it's either that or you learn it the hard way when it's too late. But that's definitely something to take advantage of when it is calm out. Just like you mentioned before in the past, learning how to use your radar before it's raining.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, that's a great point you had there. I mean, take your boat out there, shut one of them down, and try backing it up. See which way it goes. If you're using your port engine, and it's only going to want to back up one direction, so when you pull into a slip, you can get yourself positioned ahead of time, so it's going to back in the way you want. Or, I mean, go bow first. If you can get home, get it home, get it tied up, get safe. And then, you can go from there. But, any way or you can do it to get in safely is what you want to do. So, speaking of weather, Kimberly's got a follow-up question too. What's the best weather app? What do you like, Nick?
I like Windfinder. Windfinder has honestly surprised me with how accurate it is. Obviously, it's not 100%, but I mean, even when I've had the NOAA forecast give me something or the weatherman on the TV give me something, Windfinder is going to pretty much bring it down to the hour. And I've been pretty impressed with both their map and I believe their forecast is every 3 hours, 2 hours, whatever it is. But, I mean, they're going to give you wind directions, wave directions, all of that stuff. And, I mean, I have trusted it with my life, whether it's up in New England or down here. That's for the wind. My radar, I like the My Radar app. That's a pretty generic one that everybody uses.
Yep.
And other than that, I know you're a big fan of the Windy app, which I actually used today.
Yeah, but actually, my go-to, it's an app or it's just a website too. It's Ventusky, VENTUSKY. That you can do. You can overlay precipitation. You can have wave direction, wave height, wind direction, air temperature, water temperature. Breaks it down hour by hour, and it goes out for weeks. And it seems to be really, really accurate. It had, the front we had come through. What was it? Christmas Day? I got it. Yeah, whatever it was, like 7 o'clock. 4 days out, it said 7 p.m. is when it's going to rain. Sure enough, man, it's right on the button, and wow. Right there. So, Ventusky, I love it.
Ventusky. So that's VIN. VEN Ventusky.
Yep.
TUSKY. There you go, everybody. Ventusky.
That's it.
Pretty cool. Like 2 places at once. Huh? So, all right, moving on. If you guys have any other questions, drop them. You want to pick our brains about anything, go ahead and do it. We're game for anything.
Oh, hey, we missed one on here too, Lisa Harrison. Do you have any tips for launching a boat solo?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it also is boat ramp etiquette too. Is you're going to be there on the weekends, especially if you're launching a boat solo. Put in your preparation, okay? You don't want to be backing into the slip by yourself and getting your drain plug, putting your drain plug in. Okay, all right, let's load the life jackets. Let's load the sandwiches. Let's get my GPS all hooked up and ready to go. Pull off to the side at the marina when you get there, so you're not holding up the whole operation. Because when you are doing it yourself, it's just going to be a much easier process. I mean, I will tell you guys right off the bat, trailering boats is my Achilles heel. I'd rather dock a 70-foot Ocean Alexander than trailer a 19 SPX to the boat ramp. It's just one of those things that, you know, the big boats are easier, quite frankly.
They are.
There are a few trips that make it a little easier. I've seen guys get really creative. But other than that, just take it slow. If you guys want to write this all down when you are doing it yourself, you can get a little bit flustered. I'm sure you've seen these horror stories of boats or trucks in the water at the boat ramp. And I turn my parking brake on every single time I get out of the truck. You know, what are your thoughts on, you know, that?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's, you don't want to see it like
You've seen them
sliding down the ramp. So one thing I will do though is like, say if I got to, you know, take my dock line and tie it off onto a bow cleat, and then take the other end of the line and either tie it to the trailer or you can tie it to the ball on your truck, whatever. So then when you do, you know, if you can't push it off, you know, you get it back down the ramp, almost ready to go. Have that line from your bow tied off to your vehicle, or like I said, to the trailer or the winch post. Then you can hop back up in your car or your truck, back down a little bit, hit the brakes. It's going to bust it loose, and the boat's going to slide back, but then that line's going to come tight that's tied to your trailer. And so that way the boat doesn't just, you know, take on out into the middle of the lake or out into the bay or whatever. Then you get out and take and tie it off onto the dock, onto the side. Or you get yourself a trolling motor like that commercial, right, with the GPS. You just launch it out there and let it park itself, and you go park and come back and have to call the boat over to you. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
I know I'd have to end up going swimming for it. It'd lose its position.
There's another thing. One of the hardest things to teach, at least for me anyways, and one of the harder things to learn is backing up a trailer, okay? It is especially with these smaller single axle trailers. I mean, they're always trying to, you know, next thing you know, you look up one way, you look back, and you're all jackknifed. But take the time. I did this with my little brother when he first got a boat before I let him launch it by himself. We put the cones out in my parents' backyard, find a parking lot somewhere, practice backing up the boat. Seriously. I mean, you've seen all the jokes, you've seen all the commercials, you've seen all the funny videos. I mean, shoot, I mean, you could go to any given boat ramp on a holiday weekend with a 6-pack of beer and have yourself a good old time. Practice backing in the trailer. Seriously. Everything's in reverse. It's very tough to explain. One person can tell you one thing and you say, hey, I thought you said right. No, you said left. Why is the boat going right? It can be very confusing. I get that. But once you learn to do it, it's easy. I mean, I don't even think about it when I back a trailer and you just know exactly what it's going to do. But take that time in a parking lot or a field somewhere and get to know your boat and trailer. Just so when you do get that chance, you're riding solo, you can pull right up, you can back in, you can sneak it in between a couple other boats, whatever it is. You're not going to have choice probably, you know, 4 open slips right there, and that way you're ready to rock when the time comes.
Great advice. Go practice.
Practice before it's too. All right, got Lisa Harrison with another question. Lisa, thank you so much for the questions today. A lot of great questions coming from Lisa. We'll make sure Marine Max sends you a little gift basket or something for all the good questions. So, what's the best way to find marinas in my area to compare benefits and pricing? Well, I like what's the app called? Docwa,
yep.
Right? Are you familiar with Docwa?
Yep. Most all your big marinas are going to that now. You can't rent a slip without that.
Yeah, it's strictly Docwa. You can't just call over the phone or anything. Yep.
No, Docwa is great, especially, you know, transient slips. You're looking for marinas if you're traveling and all that. Marinas locally, you know, you're gonna have to kind of do your own homework. You know, say you got a boat that's going to be in a high and dry. You know, will that marina wash the boat for you? Will they flush it for you? You know, load it up full of ice, put fuel in it, do the pump out. You know, some do, some don't. So, you know, don't be surprised if you go somewhere and, well, you know, Tommy's marina does this and that. Well, he's also paying extra for that more than likely, you know, so they're all different. So you just got to kind of know what questions to ask, or go to a marina on a weekend and watch them operate. How long does it take them to put a boat in the water? How long does it take to get a boat out of the water? Kind of do your homework and scout around. And a lot of it's too just location, location, location. Like for us around here, you got, Nick and I are partial to it because we're kind of down south, but you got the Tierra Verde Marinas, you got the loggerheads of Sun, Texas, down by the Skyway. That's just, you might have a longer drive in your car, but you don't have to make a big long drive back in your boat if you got inclement weather coming or it's storming or something like that. You can get back to your marina a little faster. So there's a lot to take into consideration on where you want to store your boat.
Yeah, and let's talk about this really quick. I'm talking about it from a sales perspective. As we get into the boating season, and if the boating season is anything like it was last year, if it's anything like it is any spring, everybody wants a boat and they want it now. The biggest hurdle that I come into, or that we encounter as we're working towards getting a family out on the water, is where they're going to keep the boat. A lot of times in April, May, as you make your way into the summer, boat slips and lifts, especially high and dries, are worth their weight in gold. And you know just as well as I do, the wait lists that get on some of these marinas are, to the point where you're going to be waiting for flip, and the next time you know it's January. So some advice that I have for that is, if you're thinking about buying a boat in the upcoming boating season, put the legwork in now. It might be a little scary for you. I mean, call up your sales guy or girl at Marine Max and say, hey, I'm going to need a place to keep this boat. Chances are we've got great relationships with all the different marinas. We know exactly who's got a wait list. We know exactly who's got a couple slips. Whatever area you're in, put that legwork in right now just to get that out of the way. That way it's not April, May. Everybody and their mother's got a boat. They're having a great time out on the water, and you take delivery of your boat, but you have no place to keep it. So right now, slips are pretty readily available, but that is going to change coming in the next couple of months here, especially with those nicer marinas like you were talking about, Keith. Your Tierra Verde high and dries, your Sun Tex, your Tierra Verde resorts, all that stuff is going to be harder and harder.
Yep. There's also something else. I mean, those of you that are watching on here, for the people on the podcast and stuff, though, it's the Waterway Guide. So they publish these every year. And this one just happens to be the Southern Waterway Guide. This is a 2017 one, but this is Florida, the Keys, and the Gulf Coast, including Texas. So everything you want from, if you're taking a trip, you're starting down in South Florida, and you come up to Fort Myers, then you want to go through Lake Okeechobee, and then back up the East Coast to Jacksonville. It's all going to be in that book, and it's almost like one of the old school AAA triptychs. It'll lay it out like mile by mile for you, each bridge that you come to. All your marinas are going to be, listed in there. They've got aerial photos of what the passes look like. I wouldn't travel without it. If I'm running the East Coast, West Coast, it's not. I've got a more modern one, but this is the one I had here by my desk. But take one of those Waterway Guides with you, and it's a cool read. It's almost like a little, like reading a little history book. The little towns you go through and all that. So between that and the DocY app, you should be covered as far as traveling around.
Yeah, and just kind of a word to the wise as well. I don't like to say the word "don't" because it's negative, but don't show up to a marina without calling them. I mean, you don't want to catch them off guard. You want them to be ready for you as well. A lot of these guys on your Navionics app, they're going to tell you, or your DocY app, they're going to tell you what station they're going to might be monitoring and stuff like that, and a phone number. You can just call them up, whatever. But call them before you get there, because there's nothing worse than just showing up. There's no dock space. There's nobody to help you, and you're, next thing you know, you're pulling with somebody else's slip, and you got a situation.
Yep, absolutely. Like I said, call ahead. And then you can find out if it's going to be a port side tie, starboard side tie. Maybe you want to give fuel before you hit the slip. The dock guys are going to meet you out there and, and give you a hand, so nobody likes surprises.
Well, I know we say this every week, Keith, where you say, hey, you drop the questions in the comments even after we're live, and we'll get to them one way or another. Well, we're serious, and we're going to do that right now. We got a question here from Noreen Nestor last week. This is a good one. max length of a boat for a rack. This has changed a little bit in the past years. Shoot, you got Marker One Marina lifting 42 yellowfins out of the water. Typically, what are the boats that are going to be put on a lift? What are the ones that you're going to see in a high and dry? What's that cuts going to be at?
I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, I was looking at dock manufacturer today for something else. I forget like how many thousands of pounds it was. I mean, we've had 610 Sea Ray 610 dancers on lifts, clients of ours. It doesn't really. I mean, I don't know how big they can go, but your marinas, yeah. I mean, like you said, a 405 Conquest or the 42s and all that stuff. Now they can fork those out. Set them on a rack, rinse them off, and go carry them away and stick them up in the barn and come back and get me another day, which is crazy.
Yeah, I always encourage the high and dry thing, for people just to have a carefree experience. You're not dealing with programs. So with these bigger boats, yeah, you're probably going to have them in the water with bottom paint. But if you have the choice on these smaller boats, then get them out of the water, get them up in a rack somewhere out of the elements. I mean, that's just my 2 cents, anyways.
Hey, Kimberly, she wants to know if she should dock. She's talking about backing into a slip stern end with the trim tabs down or up. You want to have them up. So if it's a bigger boat, say you got bottom paint on it, you want to have those trim tabs fully retracted so that the actuator rods are up inside that cylinder so they're not exposed to the barnacles and the water and all that stuff. And the same thing, if you're in a high and dry, make sure you run those tabs up because that's right where the forks are going to go that are going to lift your boat up. And I guarantee you go to any high and dry, there's signs up everywhere. Not responsible for trim tabs, not responsible for drain plugs. We're not responsible for squat. So as you come in, you've been out running, you don't know where your trim tabs are. Maybe most boats, there's not an indicator. Just hit the buttons. Typically it'll be down, which will raise your tabs up. And then just make sure and hold them down for 6 or 7 seconds. And, you hit that no wake zone idling in. Go ahead and just get in the habit of all the time doing that and raising your tabs up. Then you're not going to take a chance on breaking them. Now, these Bennett tabs, like on the whalers, when you shut the keys off, you'll hear a motor running. So they're automatically retracting them for you, so you don't have to worry about that.
Good question, Kimberly. Thanks for all the good questions. Some other questions here.
You good?
Thank you. I'm okay, guys. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not going anywhere. We got a lot of Boating Tips Lives episodes left here. I've got all these questions saved on my phone. All right, boat names. Let's talk boat names for a second. If I wanted to name my 24-foot center console Allure of the Seas, paying homage to RCI's Allure of the Seas, is that allowed? Would it cause problems if I use a port that ship frequents? I don't know, but to get to the bottom of that question, we get that a lot. There's a lot of boats with redundant names out there.
Yeah, there's how many Carpe Diems do you see in just different ones? But I mean,
Yamos.
Yeah, it's common sense. Think about do you really want to cause that distraction? If you need to get hold of somebody, you need help or something, and then this is the Allure of the Seas. So yeah, right. Some kid on here making a joke or something. Your home port, your hailing port's got to be where your home port is, where you live, where you keep the boat. If it's a documented vessel, of course, you have to have that on your boat. But think about it too, the way it's going to sound when you're calling it on the VHF radio, right? It's like make sure it's acceptable and it doesn't sound like a joke.
I saw a funny boat name one time, Keith.
Oh, there's a lot of them. And there's nothing wrong with funny boat name. You just don't want to make sure that it's appropriate, right? When you're trying to get hold of the Coast Guard.
So I saw this on the side of the boat the other day.
This must be a visual.
Kind of funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Imagine calling the Coast Guard with that name. Let's see, got some other ones here.
So everybody on the podcast is going to have to use their imagination on that one, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that. Let's see. We got another one that came in. How many boats per year do manufacturers produce? That was from Brian Trapp. Brian, we missed you today. We hope you had a good Christmas, and hopefully you're back asking questions next week. How many boats per year do manufacturers produce? Well, that really all depends on what type of boat, how big the boat is. I mean, I know that manufacturers such as Boston Whaler and Sea Ray can't keep up with production, and they're still pumping out a lot of boats. And you've got your big boats as far as your ocean island steamers and stuff like that, and your Hatteras, your Hatteras, like Scott Robertson talked about the other week. It's they're custom building just about every single one. They're not keeping any inventory, so it might be a little bit slower production. They might only be putting out a few boats per year. But
I think for the most part, all the normal regular boat manufacturers, I mean, they're bringing extra people on. Sea Ray's cranking them out as fast as they can. Boston Whaler, same thing. Nautic Star, we sell. Our stores up in the Midwest and other places, the other brands, they're full steam ahead right now, and the backlog is lessening. I think they're starting to catch up, and we're obviously got some inventory again, so it's all good.
We need it because inventory is good right now, and last year boats, as everybody knows, were a hot item. They're going to be hot again, and
it still is. I mean, look at
they're going to be hot again in the spring.
I mean, everything that, for the most part, the transports we're getting in right now are sold boats that were ordered. I mean, look at those Aquilas. 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, there was 4 of them. 3 of them were already. Well, I think you sold one of them. 3 of them were already sold. Coming in pre-sold. So, but we are starting to get some inventory again.
We are. So, hopefully
come on down and visit Nick and find a boat and hop in and take off and go and enjoy it by this New Year's Day.
That's right. There are in stock units, especially when you get to the Nautic Stars and some of the smaller Sea Rays and Railers and stuff. There are boats that are ready to go.
Yeah.
Got a comment here from our episode when I was down in Key West from the Bald DJ. Are there pre-programmed soft alarms based upon hours on the engine that would indicate service engine soon?
Yeah, so like Mercury right now has got the if you go in the vessel view, you click on the little Mercury green little box and the Simrad screen or your vessel view screen. Down on the bottom, you click on that. Then you'll have your Mercury information will come up on the port side of the screen. It'll show your RPM, your fuel, whatever. But then if you get into it and you hit on maintenance, and then in there it's going to show you the hours, and then there's a little blue sliding scale. It's going to go down, and then when it gets down there, it gets close to your 100 hours. It's going to let you know, hey, it's time for your 100-hour service, or annually, whichever comes first. So hopefully you're putting the 100 hours on it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Got one more, and then we're going to get to some of the other questions, some of the live questions. Stephanie Doyle, 4 months ago. Sorry it took us so long to get to this question, Stephanie. Hopefully you're watching today. Is it true that the best 2 days of owning a boat is to buy the day that you sell? Well, it's definitely the day you buy. And the day you sell, I think that it's kind of bittersweet, unless you're getting into another boat. Because let me tell you something, we don't want to be boatless as we make our way into the spring again here.
Yep. I don't know how many times you see people that'll trade in a boat, and we'll have the boat sitting out in the yard. We're refurbishing it or getting it set up. And, they look at it lovingly, but at the same time, we're walking down to hop on their new boat. And it's like, that boat served its purpose and, it got them the 4-foot-itis, right? So they jumped up 4 feet. And, but yeah, for sure. It's for sure the day you're buying it and, who knows what the circumstances are on when you're selling it or trading it.
Yeah. Or trading it. All right, let's see. Lisa, again, thank you so much, Lisa, for all these awesome questions. Do either of you have boating plans for the New Year's holiday? Yeah, I'm doing a little dinner cruise for some good friends of mine on the 30th. So I'll be out there. Hopefully it's good weather. I'll have to keep an eye on everything going on. What about you, Keith?
Yep, and Marine Max Clearwater's got a getaway going on at the Tampa Marriott. So downtown at the waterside, it's called something else now, but I still call it the waterside. But yeah, we got some festivities going on down there. Getaway. I get a bunch of our boaters together and bring in the new year down there.
Oh, so is that event on the website?
I don't know if it's still on there. The slips are full. It's all booked.
All right, got a couple. Well, maybe the man behind the curtain, as we like to call him or her, can post that link to that getaway here below us. Got Boat Boy of Louisiana here, long time Boating Tips Live watcher and question asker. I have a funny video you should watch about boats. Make sure to check that out, Boat Boy of Louisiana. Got Angel Jimenez here. A lot of great questions coming in on YouTube. Good afternoon, guys. What's a good price for a used boat, dealer or broker? Well, we've talked about that before on the Scott Robertson episode with the differences between buying a dealer-owned used boat and then a brokerage boat. A little different of a process either way. I'm a big advocate for dealer-owned boats. Let me tell you why. When MarineMax takes a boat in on trade, they're going to run it through the ringer. They're going to make sure that it's tight. They're going to if MarineMax is going to put their name on a boat and it's not going to get wholesale, then they're actually going to put it up for sale. It's going to be nice. So there's a little bit of peace of mind there. Everybody likes to say that you run a risk on a used boat of inheriting somebody else's problem. You put a little bit of that responsibility on a dealer just for them to check everything out and make sure that everything's looking good. That's one of the best benefits of working with a dealer. And also you get somebody that you can call if there's everything. If you ever have a question or anything, you can give them a call and say, hey, what's going on here? They can walk you through it. They can put you in touch with the resources. You buy a boat on the private market, you give that up. Now you're going to work with a broker who's going to be selling a boat on behalf of somebody else, Angel. You're going to have to do a little bit of due diligence yourself, whether you're going to be hiring surveys, you're going to be hauling the boat out, you're going to be going back and forth directly with the seller, and then with the broker that's going to be representing them, or a buying broker that's going to be, with you. Then there's a couple different ways that you can go. I mean, personally, I'm a big dealer advocate. There is a argument that could be made for both sides, but at the end of the day, what you really want is just to get out of the water on the boat that you want. What do you think?
Yep. So let's just like here saltwater, right? With the stern drives, if we take a boat in on trade, we're going to go through and do the inspection, and maybe it needs manifolds and risers or elbows or stuff like that. We're going to take that boat and fix it so that the new owner is not going to have those problems. You end up getting it from a broker, and your surveyor tells you that. It's like, hey, it's been 3 years. You're going to need to do this and this and this. You're going to have to figure out what it's going to cost you to, get that fixed. And then, then you're negotiating. You're negotiating with the seller of that boat as to get it ready to go. You get it from us, it's going to be turnkey. You're going to get an orientation on it, and you're going to go through the boat, and we're going to, you're going to be happy with it. If we get something that's traded in that we don't want to touch, like Nick mentioned, a wholesaler, we will sell that boat to somebody else, and then you may find that boat at Joe's parking lot dealership up the road or something, but it's not, something that we're standing behind.
Sailing New Horizons brings up a point here. Always do a survey, sea trial. Don't rely on a dealer broker. I encourage sea trials any chance I get. I love them. I like driving boats. I like riding boats. I always like to do sea trials when I buy boats, and to So if you see something that you like, give us a call, schedule that sea trial, put your deposit down to make sure it doesn't sell. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Sailing New Horizons. Definitely rely heavy on that sea trial and survey, especially in the brokerage market.
Yep. Get on it, touch it, feel it, smell it, run it, drive it. Drive it like you stole it. Put it through some waves. Get out there and put her through the paces.
Yeah. Good advice all around. Well, man, what a year it's been, 2020. Been a great year to get out on the water. And we're going to be here. We'll be here in 2021. Chances are 2022, 2023. I mean, shoot, keep an eye. You and I might be going well into the 2030s at this rate. So been a heck of a journey, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, man, me too. It was 19 years for me yesterday, I think. So big,
Congrats,
big,
man.
big,
That's
big
awesome.
2-0 coming up next December. So yeah, time flies, bud. Man, it's just I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I know 2020's been brutal. It's been hard on a lot of people, and we're just fortunate. And man, if you've got the opportunity, get yourself a boat, get out on the water, take your family out there, and spend the quality time. Man, you never know what tomorrow brings, and you can keep putting it off and put it off, and then it's like, well, that never happened. You're going to look back on it and wonder why.
Wise words, Keith. I like it, man. Well, let's sign out of this. Oh man, that's pretty cool. We've got Captain Quartz. Hi, thank you for that chat with you, Captain's watching you from Kuwait.
Captain Quartz, welcome aboard.
That's cool. Super cool.
Yeah,
well,
man.
Thanks for everybody joining us, and thanks for this whole year. And we'll see you out on the water. Keith, you want to sign us off?
Yeah, man. Check us out on our YouTube and Facebook pages, our podcast, Spotify, and I don't know. Nick knows them all. He listens to them in the car on his way back home. But
I do. I got to drive, and I think that's pretty cool. So you can find us on Facebook at Marine Max Leisure, Instagram and YouTube at Marine Max Online, all one word. Twitter at Marine Max, simple enough. And then, of course, just, put in Marine Max there on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Google, and more. You name it, we'll be there. And thanks for joining.
Thanks, guys. See you in 2021.